All right, so we encourage folks on that table up there, and actually I think there's index cards on your own tables, to just feel free to ask questions. So some of these, I always want to try to tackle some. We'll set aside a couple of nights where all we do is kind of an open forum, but let me answer a couple really quick anyway. And they'll be quick only because some of these topics we're going to get back to in greater depth, but just want to give you an idea. So a question says, the church doesn't support in vitro fertilization. Does anybody know what that is? Does anybody know what it means, in vitro? Literally? What's it mean? Excuse me? No, that's in utero. In vitro is in glass. Okay? So the church doesn't support in vitro because it isn't considered moral, but it seems to produce more life. If babies are not aborted, why is it still wrong? Great question. So one of the things you're going to hear me talk about a lot is to be precise in how we talk about things. Here's how I would reword something like this. I wouldn't say that the church doesn't support in vitro. I mean, who really cares if the church supports it or not, quite honestly. The church would propose that in vitro fertilization is contrary to the dignity of the human person. Why? So take a couple who can't conceive through normal intercourse, and they want to have children. It's a good desire, right? So they're not doing what we would call heterologous artificial insemination, which is where you have one of the spouses and either the eggs or the sperm from another donor who's not the spouse. It's homologous, which is the husband and the wife. It's their sperm and egg. Why in the world would the church say that it's contrary to human dignity, or to human dignity to produce or to manufacture a child in a test tube? Why do you think? And the answer, go ahead. Taking the spark of life into human hands? Okay. So that's good. That's a great response, actually. The church would say something like this, that a child has the right to be the product of the love between a husband and a wife, and that anything that science or medicine can do to assist a husband and a wife in the natural generation of a child is in keeping with the dignity of a human person. Anything that medicine or science does that replaces the act of marital love with another act now, in this case now we have a third party involved, and we have an assembly line where we are now producing, we're making a product, is what we're doing now. It's no longer an act of love between a man and a wife. It's a product which somebody is manufacturing, which when you do in vitro is never just a single sperm and egg. It's usually tens of sperms and eggs, which are then frozen because in vitro is so expensive, because in vitro is tens of thousands of dollars. So now we have a product mentality towards a human person, and a human person is never a product. Does that make sense to people? We're going to get much more into this, so I'll leave that as just kind of like a teaser to what we're going to get to. So great intentions, right? Good intentions. But the first question we always want to ask with a moral question is, what am I doing? Not what am I intending will come as the consequences, but what is the act that I am choosing to do? And in this case, what I'm choosing to do, the act that I'm choosing to do, is I'm choosing to manufacture a human person. And even though my intention to have life might be a great intention and a noble intention, and it certainly sounds like it would be, a child should not be manufactured. And oftentimes when you spend tens of thousands of dollars to create a product, you want a good product. So I don't want a Down syndrome child. I don't want a child with another birth defect. I'm sorry? Yeah, thank you. So that's the issue behind this, but we'll get more into that as we go along. It's a great question. Keep asking, okay? Another person asked, my friend, a Lutheran, believes that the Eucharist in the church, Catholic Church, is the body and blood of Jesus. She asks why she can't receive the Eucharist. How do I answer? Good question. So, as we said last week, first of all, I would ask that person, do you believe it's only the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus, or do you believe that it's the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus and bread? So Lutherans don't believe in what we would call transubstantiation. We'll get to this a lot more when we get into the discussion on the Eucharist. Lutherans believe in what's called consubstantiation, that the Eucharist is both bread and the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus. If your friend who's Lutheran does not believe that, then your friend should not be Lutheran, because that's what Lutherans believe. She should be Catholic. Or he should be Catholic, because that's what Catholics believe and Orthodox believe. But we said briefly at up in the church upstairs, either last Sunday or the Sunday before, when we come forward for communion in a Catholic church, we're saying everything these people here believe, I believe, and I'm in grace, and maybe now we could add to that, and I am in communion with them as well. So Jesus' prayer on the night before he suffers, over and over and over again, is that all those who believe in him would be one. So one that Jesus describes it as you, Father, and I are one. Which is to say, it's not a kind of a superficial unity, it's a radical unity. Because the Father and Son are as one as you can be and not be the same person. Jesus' desire for his church, that is to say, all those who believe in him, would be that we would be that unified, so that, Jesus continues in his prayer, the world may believe that you sent me. So tragically, the division amongst Christians, for all that we hold together, praise be Jesus, the division that exists between us is a scandal to the world. A scandal just means something that causes people to stumble. Because here we are, all acknowledging Jesus as our Lord and Savior, and yet on Sunday, we're not all together. And some of us even say about each other, well, if you're not X, you're going to hell. Which doesn't exactly motivate people to join us. So we'll get into some more of those things when we keep going along, okay? So keep asking. Like I told you, be like the 2-year-old. Why? All right. Who can summarize for me quickly what Father Dave said last week? Oh, I wasn't here. Don't call on me. Anybody remember anything Father Dave said last week? Go ahead. Faith, great. What is it? Faith is not blind and it doesn't believe without understanding. Okay. It's a little bit. Who's got more? What do you talk about? Someone asks you, what's faith? How do you answer? Your response to God calling you? Okay. Anybody else? So remember, let's keep thinking this way. When we come together down here, this is not a class. So that doesn't mean I don't want you to take notes. I actually do. I mean, I take notes all the time on everything, because otherwise I'll forget, right? Because we're all inundated with information too often, and unfortunately because of screens, like I have a quasi-photographic memory, but not for a screen. Because the screen, it's always the same size, and things keep moving on it. But on a page, like I can tell you everything that's on this page and where it is, because the page is static. But a screen is not. And I share that only because if we don't write things down, we don't remember them, most of us. So it's important to try to capture whatever it is that you feel like are significant takeaways from what we're doing down here. Not because it's a class, but because these are things that we want to ponder seriously as we leave here, because it's not a done deal that you're all going to become Catholic. And the decision to become Catholic is based on what it is that we do here. And we're going to get into a little bit of that tonight. And the decision to become Catholic is not, as we said a couple of weeks ago, like, what hat am I going to put on today? Because the choice, and it is a choice, to become Catholic is going to shape my entire life. Not just what I do on Sunday for an hour. Okay? So, what we want to do when we come down here is we want to try to enter in with a sense of whether I'm not baptized or I'm baptized in another tradition. We just want to, as we walk into the church, we just want to say, Lord, for some of us, it might be as honest as this. I don't even know if you're real yet. If you are, I'm just asking you to show yourself to me. If there's more to life than this, I want to know that. For others who know the Lord, but we're just not Catholic, Lord, if this is where you're calling me, I need to know that. Help me to understand that. Help me to see things, to understand things, to ask questions, to ask the right questions, to be open to your voice. That's the only voice that we want to hear. Okay? So, what I want to try to do tonight is talk a little bit more about belief. What I really want to talk about is I want to talk about the cost, the call, the cost, and the reward of discipleship. And I want to do that kind of early on because, show of hands again, who's here not baptized? Hi. Yeah, okay. So, for those of you not baptized, if, and only if, you should decide to keep coming and to show up at the Easter Vigil, I'm going to ask you, as you stand at the outside of the baptismal font on that night, in front of everybody who's there, do you believe in God, the Father Almighty, the creator of heaven and earth? Do you believe in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the power of the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, was buried, rose from the dead, ascended into heaven, and is seated at the right hand of God the Father? And do you believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and life everlasting? If you do not say yes, it's kind of like the emergency exit row on a plane. I need an audible yes, or we're not going anywhere. But you have to answer yes, and only freely. Those of you who are already baptized, who are here discerning whether or not you want to come into full communion with the church, which is no small thing, you're going to need to recite publicly the same creed in front of everybody, and you're going to have to say, I believe and accept as true all that the church teaches and believes to be teaches and believes and professes to be revealed by God. Okay? So I want to ask the question tonight, what in the world does it mean to say I believe? So if I ask those of you who are, remember, not those who are already Catholic, whether you're here as a sponsor or you're here just for your own enrichment, but those of you who are in those two categories, either I'm contemplating becoming baptized or I'm contemplating coming into full communion with the church, to tell me what you understand. There's no wrong answer here. What you understand by the question, what does it mean to believe? How would you answer? and this is another one of those non-rhetorical questions. So, what does belief mean to you? Okay, I'm giving myself to something bigger than myself to have faith in? Okay. Who else? I'm sorry? Accepting it as true? Okay. What are you going to say? Something you believe to be true? Can't use the word in the definition. Try that again. So is faith an opinion? Okay. Who else? What does it mean to say I believe? Yeah. No, you're a Catholic. You can't answer, Sandy. Sorry. Can't answer. My rules, I make them up. I'm not the boss. I'm just like the caretaker. So last week, one of the things Father Dave was trying to impress upon us is that faith is not the mere intellectual assent to the proposition there is a God. In other words, faith, to say I believe or to say I have faith in God does not mean simply to answer the question, is there a God, with a yes. The devil has that. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but you're thinking of coming into, you haven't got confirmation, have you? Yeah, so you're still working on completing the sacraments. You are therefore eligible to answer the question. For $250, what does belief mean to you? Well, God's going to want more from you. Yeah. Belief is acceptance of those statements? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Faith and belief and acceptance are all in one line. Okay. I would agree with you. You either do believe or you do not, right? So, and I would just reiterate again that to say that, to say I believe in God does not mean I think there is a God. That's not belief. And it's not faith. And again, the demons have that because they know there is a God, but they don't believe. Belief is something entirely different than that. Yeah. You're Catholic, you can't answer the question. Oh, no, you're coming in. You're not confirmed. You are still eligible. I'm sorry. It's just a knowing? Yeah. Nope, it's not a feeling. Absolutely.
Basically, for me, when I think about God, and it's like I just know He's there. And that's, to me, what I feel belief is. Like, I don't have to think about it, I just know it.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
We're talking about what is belief only for, in the context of, like, believing in God.
Yeah, and I would argue that it is not appropriate to believe in anything or anyone else for reasons that I will say. I retract the opinion comment. Yeah. Okay, a conviction. Okay. So someone mentioned last week, Father Dave shared what I think is still the best definition of faith I've ever heard, which is faith is God's work in me to which I respond. Right? Remember that? Okay. What's his work? What does that mean? We're going to keep asking questions like this because what happens otherwise in the church and amongst Christians is we throw around all these words without understanding what we're saying. We don't want to be like that. If we're going to say things, we want to understand what we're saying. So when we say it's God's work in me, what is his work in me? Everything we believe. Break that open. So, yeah. Okay, help me understand how that, I'm not challenging you at all. That's not what I'm asking. I'm just trying to go deeper. What does that have to do with his work?
So that is what, he asked as the prophet to act out, to live like a just life to enter to heaven, right?
Okay. Okay. So part of his work is his revealing how to live? We can say that? Yeah. Which he does in part through the commandments? Okay. So let me offer a couple things to keep kind of going into this. So the most important thing maybe here to understand when we say this, faith is God's work in me to which I respond. Faith is a gift. Okay? Faith isn't my work. Faith is God's work. Faith is a gift. It's a gift that God wants to give to everybody. Everybody. And as Father Dave shared last week, it's a way of knowing. Faith is a light. Faith is an illumination. Not for the elite, who have somehow been initiated into this secret society. No, God wants to share this with everybody. God wants to enlighten my mind. He wants me to see reality. Okay? So faith is a way of understanding. For example, I'm going to point over and over again to that back wall. I'm not pointing to the speaker. I'm not pointing to Kathy. I'm pointing to Jesus on the crucifix. Faith enables me to see that that's the one who made the universe and that he did that out of love for me. See, there's nothing, if you and I were to walk outside, so the priests, we've been up north this past 4 days. For every 2 years we go away at a convocation with one another, so it's like 240 of us up north. Spend time together, there's some talks, great time of prayer, time to be with our Archbishop. So it was gorgeous up north right now. There's no colors, don't go up north yet, it's still too hot. Save your money, about another week, it'll be nice. But clear skies, so there's no ambient light, right? So there's just stars everywhere. There is nothing in our unillumined minds which would enable us to walk outside, see the stars lit at night, and go, I think the one who made all these is so passionate about me that he became man and offered up his life for me. Nothing in our only rational way of thinking would ever lead me to that conclusion. Right? Someone has to reveal that to me. Someone has to show that to me. So faith enables me to see, to know, to understand. It's not a feeling. It's not an opinion. It's a certainty. Faith is rock solid. Faith is dependable. Because my belief is not in any man. That's why belief, I would say, is not appropriate for a single person. It's only appropriate for God. Because I don't rely on anybody like I rely on God. When I came here, the first Sunday I was here, the only promise I made to everybody in the parish is, I will disappoint you. That I am sure of. Why? Because I know me. And you will disappoint me too. Because I know you. I know at least this about you. I know that you're a man or a woman and that you're fallen. and that you're sinful, as am I. So don't trust me in the way that we trust God. Don't hope in me like we hope in God. Don't believe in me the way we believe in God. Belief is only appropriate to God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Everything else will let me down. And that's okay, because it reminds me that my faith is only appropriately placed in Him. So every time my faith gets shattered, quote unquote, in people, it's just God's way of saying, why were you hoping in them anyway? Rely only on me, he says, okay? So faith is God's work. It's his gift, in me. It gives me a way of knowing. It illumines my understanding. It helps me to see reality as it is. It helps me to answer questions like, why is there something rather than nothing? Like, that's a really profound question. Why is there anything? Why is there any creation? Why are there stars? Why are there animals? Why are there planets? Why am I? Why is there something rather than nothing? The Christian response to that question is because God, who is love, out of love, freely chose to create. And the greatest of everything he created, was not baby seals. Wasn't even pandas, which are my favorite animals, as you'll hear often. It's us. We're the only thing he made in his image and likeness. That's why there's something rather than nothing. Only faith can help me know that. Faith helps me understand why I'm here, where I'm going, and how I'm getting there. And as we'll walk through in these weeks and months ahead, we'll see, please God, that only Jesus offers me a credible reason for believing him and no one else to those questions. Why am I here? Where am I going? And how do I get there? Okay? You with me so far? All right? So that's God's work. What we want to look at tonight, the focus tonight is, what is the response he's looking for? That's what we want to dive into. Okay? And it's actually not so much the theme for tonight, and it's not even the theme for like the rest of becoming Catholic. I would argue that in reality, it's the theme for the rest of your life and mine, if you're going to live as a Christian. What is the response God is looking for? When I woke up this morning, God was looking for a response from me. If I wake up tomorrow, and one day I will not wake up, what is the response God will be looking for? And every day, I will have to choose again to do it. And in all honesty, some days I choose not to. Not all day anymore, but periodically throughout the day, trust me, I choose to give him a response other than what he is looking for. Thanks be to God, he is really patient and very merciful. So we're going to look at this tonight. So I want to focus on the call, the cost, and the reward of discipleship, because that's what's being put in front of us. That's really, for whatever reason, however you got here and whyever you are here, that's what I would argue is the choice that's in front of you, whether or not you want to respond to the invitation of Jesus to become a disciple or to live as a Catholic disciple if you're not yet Catholic. So I want to do this in looking at three passages mainly. So you got your Bibles with you, and I'm going to need someone, because I have a different translation than you do. So when you find a page number, if you would shout this out so that we can share it with people. First passage is Mark 8, verses 34 to 36. Who's got a page number? For those who are still finding their way through the Bible. Mark 8, 34 to 36. Those of you who have never found, excuse me? 83? 84. All right, page 84 in your hymnals. Just kidding. Okay, so Mark 8, verses 34 to 36, page 84. Second passage we're going to look at quickly is Matthew 11. That's the book immediately before Mark, if you're still finding your way through the Bible, which I would expect many of us are. That's all right.
84 in the New Testament.
Yeah, 84 in the New Testament. Thanks for clarifying that. That would be in the back of the book. All right. There's two Testaments, the Old Testament and the New Testament. So page 84 in the New Testament. Matthew 11, verse 12. Anybody got a page number? 31? All right, 31 in the New Testament. Last passage, Romans 12. That's the sixth book of the New Testament. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans. Romans 12, verses 1 and 2. Anybody got a page number? Romans 12, verses 1 and 2. 231. Wow, all right. So we're going to look at page 84, page 31, page 231. All right? So first, let's look at Mark 8, which would require glasses. All right. All right, so let me give you a quick setup on this. So Mark is 16 chapters long. This is Mark 8. This is the center of the gospel. This is, we're going to get into to Jesus much more in depth next week. I just want to set this up this week. This is, maybe we could say, the apex of Jesus' ministry. Let me simply say this right now, for those of us who don't know the New Testament and really don't yet know Jesus. Jesus is the only man in human history who never bored anybody. Somehow, tragically, we as Christians have made him boring. I might be boring. You might be boring. Jesus is anything but boring. The response to Jesus from the crowds was one of two things: either leave everything and follow this man, or kill him. And there were three classes or categories of people who in a particular way loved Jesus' company. Prostitutes, tax collectors, and sinners. These are, as someone once said, people who are very easily bored. They're people who either thought the answer to life is sex, or the answer to life is money, or the answer to life is me. Just living for me. And that was their life until they met him. And then everything changed. So the Lord he's God in the flesh, an amazing charisma. And he's a magnet who pulls people to himself. So he has, at this point in Mark, an enormous following. So at the height of, we could say perhaps, his career from a worldly perspective, with everyone around him, those who both believe in him, so his closest friends, and those who are just kind of like curious. And that includes, so that would be us. Some of us here are his friends. We said that much when we came the first couple of nights. Some of us, it's like, I don't know that I know Jesus as a friend, but I'm curious. So in these verses that we want to look at, Jesus is talking to us. And as we read, especially the Gospels, we always want to keep in mind, when we read the Gospels, we're not reading history, or we're not reading mere history. The Gospels are always an event. They're happening now. So the Lord is talking to you and me, even as really as he talked to the crowds 2,000 years ago on the hillsides of Galilee, which you can still walk today. And this is what he says. So he called to him the multitude, that's the crowds, with his disciples. Those are the ones who are following him. And he said to them, if any man would follow me. or come after me. Let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his life? For what can a man give in return for his life? For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him will the Son of Man also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. So these are Jesus' words to us. So I'm so thrilled that you've decided to come to Becoming Catholic at Our Lady of Good Counsel. I hope you have enjoyed the food. Let me tell you why I have invited you here. To ask you this question, which I want you to take the next number of months to answer. If you want to be my disciple, then this is what I'm looking for. Note, it's an if. There is only one way to become a Christian. You cannot become a Christian because your mom and dad were Christian. You cannot become a Christian because you were baptized alone. The only single way to become a Christian is to make a choice. You have to make it. I have to make it. It's a personal decision. It's like Jesus saying, Eileen, if you want to come after me, then this. But you're free to walk away. And so with everybody here, we can all walk away. And after this, many people walked away. If I talked like this, if you want to belong to my church, this is what I'm looking for from you. Hopefully you would go, you got to be kidding. Like, who do you think you are? You want what? So it's an if. Let's just back up, if we can, real quick, and answer the question, what it means to be a disciple. Because that's what we're talking about. We are contemplating becoming disciples of Jesus, or becoming Catholic disciples of Jesus. The word in Greek is mathetes. Not that you need to memorize that by any means, but mathetes just means student, pupil, okay? But here's the problem with that. So anybody in here a teacher? Yeah, so your students may or may not be listening to you when you teach, kind of like you right now, right? Like some of us, when we go to class, we may or may not be listening to the professor or the teacher or whatever grade level we might be in, whether it's kindergarten or whether it's, postgraduate work. That's not what this word means. This isn't somebody who just shows up at class and attends a couple of lectures and then goes home. That's not a disciple. So the disciples, the most intimate disciples of Jesus, they left everything and they lived with Jesus. They left everything. They didn't just show up for a couple of hours a day. They lived with him for 3 years. They listened to him. They learned from him. They were corrected by him. They were challenged by him. They were loved by him. They were encouraged by him. They witnessed him over and over and over and over again. So you can't follow Jesus the way one person puts it by staying home and studying his teachings. Like you can't become Catholic by coming to this class and studying the catechism. That doesn't cut it. Or attending some lectures. Pope Benedict, who was the man who was in the position that Pope Francis is in now, before Pope Francis, he used to just talk about it as to be a disciple in its most simplistic sense maybe means to be Jesus's friend. The challenge for us, unfortunately, in our culture is we don't really seem to understand what it means to be a friend. Some of us have thousands of friends, which is, quite frankly, in all honesty, impossible, unfortunately. Here's how I would define a disciple. To be a disciple is to strive. This is worth writing down, actually, because this is what you're considering. So I'm going to set a high bar at the very beginning, simply because we want to be clear on where it is we're thinking of going. I'm not asking you to make a decision today at all. This would be absurd, as we're going to see as we end. We just want to have a vision as to where we're going, okay? Because I think and believe as credible that to live as a disciple of Jesus is to know abundant life, and that there is nothing that can compare with following him and to giving my life to him. That's why we share the faith. That's why we evangelize. That's why we do this. That's why we have a church. Because to know him is to know life. And to not know him is to not know life. It's to live in darkness. It's to bump into things. It's to be in discouragement and despair. But to know him changes everything. That's what this is about. So to be a disciple, I would say, is this. It means to strive to bring my entire life under the lordship of Jesus. So we could put it this way for us. Those of you who have been coming and are coming, what we're trying to answer prayerfully, reasonably, in discussion as we ask questions, we want to try to get an answer to the question, is it worth striving to bring my life in its entirety under the lordship of Jesus? What do lords do? They rule. Exactly. They rule. Not like they keep me under their thumb. That's not the kind. That's why we're going to keep looking at that crucifix over and over again. That's clearly not the way Jesus leads. Hi, Jeff. Jesus turns authority on its head. He actually shows us what real authority looks like. Real authority looks like laying down your life for those that you're entrusted with the responsibility of caring for. But that's a disciple. So if you would come after me, then these things. So first we've seen it's an if. You're free to not come back. No one's going to chase you down. He will. So Jesus says, if I would come after him, let him deny himself. So for years and years, I used to think this word just kind of meant like, do some penance. That's not what this word means. So the word that Jesus uses here is a legal term, and it means a complete disownment. So it's almost like, I got a deed, here's the deed of my car. I'm going to sell my car to Kevin. I write on the deed, I no longer own this card, I hereby deed it over to Kevin. And I give him, and he now owns the car. Okay? That's what this word means. So, if you want to come after me, understand this is what I'm going to ask you to do. If you're going to say yes, I'm going to ask you to be able to say, I, John, do hereby today surrender the ownership of my life to Jesus. I no longer own my life. At which point, if you're hearing me, you should be thinking something like, why in the hell would I do that? Or you're not hearing me. And if I can make it more pointed, as a friend of mine always used to put it, and if Jesus is not Lord of my body, my time, and my money, what, pray tell, is he Lord of? So the Lord is asking me to think about giving him everything. Now, let me be honest with you. Here's me. This is my life, and I'm like this. And he's just trying to pry my fingers off of it because I want my life. Now, maybe I'm more selfish than you, but I don't think that's true. Well, it might be true, but I don't think I'm unique. I probably am more selfish than you, but I don't think I'm unique. Like, I know human nature, right? Like, this is our lives, and our hands are on it tightly. Like, if I don't take care of me, who's going to take care of me? I've been burned before. I gave my life to someone once before. I got hurt really badly. So I ain't just going to let go of this grip. So if you're hearing this going, oh, I don't think I want to do that, that's all right. Like, I know what that feels like. Everybody in this room knows what that feels like. That's why this isn't the end of the story tonight. This is just making clear we understand the bar. Okay? Some of us might go to the bar after tonight just to deal with this. I do routinely, but I don't get drunk, okay? Jesus drank wine. He accuses himself of being a drunkard. He's not. He just acknowledges, he doesn't accuse himself. He acknowledges that people accuse him of being a drunkard. He's not a drunkard, but God created wine. You can't have grape juice for all eternity. It will continue to ferment. It'll become wine. His first miracle is 180 gallons of wine. Jesus likes wine. God likes wine. He likes it so much he turns it into his precious blood. So, tangent. Sorry, didn't mean to get off on that. So, the call, or the cost rather, of discipleship is surrender. What is the response God is looking for? God's faith is God's work in me to which I respond. What is the response? Everything. That's the response. Surrender. That's the response. And nothing will ever be more challenging in your life or mine than this. Because we're all born with a predisposition to not do this. We're all born with a birth defect, spiritually speaking. And the birth defect is, I am born hostile to God. I don't want to trust him. I want to be God. I want lordship of my life. I want to be Lord of my body, my time, and my money, and everything else. I'll give him this and this maybe, but not that, that, and that, or at least not yet. Any of this ring true with anybody? Like, I'm still in this with you, okay? So this is not like the master guru sitting up here going, oh, like I just know that it's worth it, but I'm still wrestling with you, okay? So that leads to this second passage, Matthew 11. So let's look at this real quick. Matthew 11, verse 12. What'd you say it was, page 31? Yeah. So Jesus says something in this verse. I don't want to get lost in the. He's talking about John the Baptist. So I don't want to get lost in the context. But he says something which is an enigmatic passage, which often gets misunderstood. I just want to try to speak to it real quickly. Jesus says this: from the days of John the Baptist until now. So John is Jesus' cousin. He is what is known as the last of the prophets. He points out Jesus. He identifies Jesus. We'll get into this a lot more next week. From the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has suffered violence. And what do you have for your next part of that verse? What's it say? And the violent carry it away. Anybody else got another translation? The violent take it by force. Right, so sometimes people point to a passage like this and they go, ha, looks like Christians do like vigilante evangelism, right? Like repent or die. That's not what Jesus is talking about. The violent, Jesus says, take it by force. Take what by force? Take the kingdom of heaven by force. What in the world does Jesus mean? Here's what he means. In order for me to become a disciple, violence has to happen. Where? Right here. I have to do violence to my heart, which is not the center of feelings for a scriptural person. It's the center of decision making. It's the center of the will. That's what the heart is. In order for me to become a disciple, I have to do violence to my heart. Why? Because surrendering myself to God will kill me. That's why. You will never do anything more difficult than this. I don't think. Okay? So let's flip to Romans, because let's look at this last passage real quick. What'd you say it was 2:31? Is that what I heard? Romans 12, verses 1 to 2. This continues, so we're still sticking with this theme, the cost of discipleship. That's what this is all about right now. So Jesus says, if you want to come after me, then we got to do these three things. We're focusing on especially denying myself. To deny myself is not to give up meat once a week or to give some money to the church. To deny myself is to sign over the legal ownership of my life, which now we're saying, I would argue that Matthew 11 is trying to help us understand more deeply. Like, if I'm going to do this, it means there's got to be some violence that takes place. It's got to happen in my heart. And then Paul kind of caps it off here in Romans 12, where he writes, I appeal to you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as, what do you got? Yeah, a living sacrifice. So Paul is drawing upon, if you were to live in the ancient world, whether you were to walk into the temple in Jerusalem, where you would have seen myriads, which is to say tens of thousands of animal sacrifices, or if you were to walk into any other pagan temple anywhere in the world, and you were to watch rituals taking place in their religions, you would have beheld sacrifice. In sacrifice, what happens? You kill something, right? All right? So Paul's trying to help us with that imagery in mind. He says, okay, so here's what we need to do, people. We need to present ourselves as a living sacrifice. Here's how one guy put it once. I love this description. He says, so the problem of a living sacrifice is it keeps crawling off the altar. But I am called to be a living sacrifice. So every day as I wake up, every day, if you're going to choose, and it's only if, you're going to choose to live as a Catholic disciple of Jesus, it means that we are deliberate and intentional about saying to Jesus, Lord, here I am. I crawl back atop the altar. Here I am. Okay? God's work in me to which I respond. The response is everything. The gift is more. Because again, the question should be, why would I do that? We should expect people to ask us reasonably, why should I bother to give my life to Jesus? Why should I live as a disciple? Why should I surrender my life to him? And again, as we're going to keep pointing, because it is in response to that, his gift of self on the cross. But let's just touch quickly, if we can, on what I would call some of the rewards of discipleship. So, may or may not be helpful. I mean, again, maybe I'm just more selfish than you, but I do want to know what I get out of this. And it helps me to know that some of the early Christians asked the same question to Jesus. So Peter, who's one of the first disciples, one of the closest of his friends amongst the 12, which we call the apostles. Peter, at a certain point, says to Jesus, Lord, we've given up everything to follow you. What's in it for us? So, just nice to know that a saint asked that question, right? So if you got that question, and you should have that question, you're not alone. So what's in it for us? Well, here's a few things that are in it for us. One, Jesus says, I have come so that you might have not life, abundant life. Abundant life. One of the greatest things that can happen to somebody in life is when they get everything they've always wanted and they realize, I'm not content. Does anybody know who the number one golfer in the world was before Tiger Woods? No, not Nicklaus. Sometime immediately before. David Duval, right? David Duval was the number one ranked golfer in the world. He was always told the moment you win a major, which is one of golf's 4 major championships, most important championships, you will find satisfaction. He won a major. He went into a tailspin, depression, became the 451st ranked golfer in the world. Why? Because I got what I always wanted, and I realized it's not what I always wanted. One of the greatest things that can happen to us is we achieve our dream and we're disappointed. Why is that so? Because nothing will satisfy me but God. Why? Because you have an insatiable, restless desire to be loved. That's what I want. I don't know what abundant life is. I just know this isn't it. What do I want? More. And Jesus says, I have come not to give you that more, I am that more. Even your spouse, if you're married, who you may love deeply, is going to die. My mom was married to my dad for 66 years. They were 66, they were like 61. Extraordinary years, as a friend of mine would say. I've been married 38 years, 12 of the best years of my life. They weren't all flawless, right? They were never flawless. But I don't know a couple that was ever happier than my mom and dad. Mainly because of the challenges they went through. But here's the challenge of married life. Here's the challenge of friendship. This person whom I'm surrendering to, who I entrust myself to, whether it's marriage or friendship, who I love, either they or I is going to die, and I'm going to be left alone. Then what? I need, my heart craves infinite, unending, eternal love. I miss my dad and my brother who passed away right after him to no end. Most of my friends are dead already. I miss them to no end. I cry all the time because I miss them. And I know I'll see him again. And I know I can feel him around me. But I'm made with a desire to not have a love die. C.S. Lewis, some of you might know C.S. Lewis. Lewis was what we might want to call a devout atheist for much of his life. And then he becomes a Christian, and probably the most well-read and most beloved Christian of the 20th century. Lewis said one time, he says, you know what, if you want to be safe, take your heart, lock it up in a box, and don't give it to anybody or anything, not even a dog. Why? Because whatever you love is going to die. How are you going to handle that? And so a lot of people do just that. I know I did that for a long time in my life after I got hurt really badly by somebody. I just said, you know what, screw that. I'm never loving anybody again. And I put a wall all around my heart and said, no one's ever coming in here again, because I don't want that to happen again. And I know a lot of us can live like that, because it takes so much risk to drop the walls to let somebody into our lives, because we're afraid we aren't going to be accepted for who we are. Like who we are, not who we appear to be, who we are. It's one thing to be loved for who we appear to be. It's another thing to be loved for who we are. And so we just, out of self-preservation, we put all these walls around ourselves, and then somehow, for some reason, we just start lowering the walls and we let people in. But even as we let people in, to love is exceptionally risky. Not only because I can get hurt, but because the person that I care about is going to go one day. And I'm going to mourn intensely. But not with God. So I get the first reward, I might say, is abundant life, and it begins now. This is not just like, follow Jesus, suck it up. You're probably going to have like 70 really crappy years, but you got heaven as the Cupid doll, okay? That is not the call to be a Christian. The call to abundant life begins now. Like, yeah, this is a valley of tears. Some days just are terrible, okay? But it begins now. Because faith is a way of knowing, and even in the dark valleys, even in the midst of death, even in the midst of suffering, even in the midst of my friend over in Erbil who may end up getting crucified or beheaded, like he knows, he doesn't feel, he knows God is with me, and he's stronger than death, and that's not poetry, and one day I'm going to be home with him. And even now, in the midst of whatever I'm going through, he's with me. However dark it might be, he's with me. And his strength is sufficient for me. And I am immensely loved. And intensely loved. And I don't care what kind of stuff you got or what facade you're wearing here today, but you want the same thing. You're dying to know you matter. You're worth it. You're worth dying for. And the cross tells me I'm worth dying for to God. To the God who made the universe out of nothing. I don't know why, how. I'm that important to him that he would do that for me. That's the first reward. A second reward is freedom. We tend to think of freedom as being able to do whatever I want. That's not freedom, that's lawlessness. You can't do that. Try driving on the wrong side of the road on the way home. You're not free, not in that way. That's not freedom. Freedom is the ability to do what I should do all the time. But the thing I want to be free from, I want to be free from my past. That's what I want to be free from. Because I might be a priest now, but I got some ugly things in my past. And my past might have been this morning, for all you know, or last night. And so with you. Like, we long to know, like, can I just, like, get my life back again? We're all here with, some of us got maybe minor things in our life that we've done that we're just, like, deeply ashamed of. Others of us, we don't have, like, minor things. We got, like, big-time things that we're ashamed of, all right? We just don't talk about this with everybody. But he knows it, and we know it. We look in the mirror, and we go, wow, I did what? Wouldn't it be great to just get your life back? And to realize, like, I'm not defined by my past anymore. That God doesn't define me by my past. I can look in a mirror now and I can go, yep, son of a gun, I did that. Wow. How dumb. I've been forgiven. And I got my life back. That's real freedom. And the last thing, these aren't the extent of the rewards by any means, but the last thing that I get, you know what you get out of following Jesus? You get joy. The reason why the disciples share the gospel is joy. Come meet a man who changed my whole life. I was blind and I see. I was dead and I'm alive. I was stuck and I am free. I'm not trying to sell you a system. This class and what we're doing here, this isn't about proposing an ethical choice. This is a proposition that there is someone that you can meet who is literally dying to be met, who wants to offer you joy. And the early disciples said, what we have touched, what we have heard, what we have seen, what we have lived with, this one we tell you about. Why? So that the joy that we have, the joy that comes from knowing that, like, I matter to God, can be your joy. Not because somehow you're good enough to make the grade, because no one's good enough to make the grade. Just because you're loved. And your past doesn't disqualify you. All you got to do is say, here. To the extent that I can right now, I give you my life. With no small amount of fear and trembling, I give you my life. And I do that because no one is as credible or as worth trusting like you are, because no one can do anything for me that can compare with what you have done for me, because you are the creator of everything that is, and you have died for me. And so I will trust you like I trust nobody. That's why you don't believe in anyone but him, because no one is that credible. You with me? That's what this is all about. That's why all the people who work on our RCIA team, that's why they're here. They want you to know the joy that they have come to know, which someone else has shared with them. That's why they keep coming. We don't pay these people. They don't pay me either, for that matter. You know what I make a year? I don't even know what I make a year. $26,000? Some of you may have more degrees than me, but I'll bet most of you don't. And I'll doubt anybody. Maybe a couple of you do. I have degree after degree after degree. I make 26 grand. I get nothing. But seeing you in the world's eyes, I get nothing from in the world's perspective, but I watch people encounter him and him break into their lives, and that's all I live for. That's all I live for. Just seeing people. I got a note from a woman. I don't think it was a woman. Handwriting tells you, right? But some years ago, it was like the greatest thing I ever got at that point in this parish at the time. It was just some scribbled thing. It was tucked into the windshield wiper of my car, and it wasn't signed. It just says, I am beginning to understand what this is all about. And I thought, love you. Because that's why we do everything we do. The reason to the question, why does Our Lady of Good Counsel exist? We exist to offer every person in our community a life-changing encounter with the person of Jesus, who alone can give us abundant life, freedom, and joy. That's the good news. The cost is you got to give them everything. So next week, what we want to do, we want to dive into the Gospels a little bit more. We want to look at who this Jesus is. Okay? I just want to set the bar tonight for what it is Jesus is calling us to do. And we're going to dive into Scripture next week, in a particular way, the Gospels. We want to tackle the question, is Jesus just a man? And we want to look, before we do that, we want to take a look at something like, because this becomes increasingly an issue, I know, especially for many younger people, but not just younger people. Because we've all kind of grown up, like who grew up with a telephone game? Remember that? Kindergarten, right? So I tell Amy a story, and she just passes it around the room, and then by the time it gets over to Julie, it's a completely different story, right? So a lot of us, we kind of superimpose that onto the scriptures. We're like, come on. Like, we've all had experience of someone telling us something, and then by the time, it gets around to whatever, it's become something entirely different. Surely that's what this is. Well, so first of all, like, most of the world, in the world's history, has not been literate. So you might have had a book in the first century. Good for you. What are you going to do with it? Because you probably couldn't read it. Because most people couldn't read. So the ancients, and still many cultures today, they would hear us talk about the telephone game, and they would look at us and go, what kind of morons are you? You can't simply remember a story that was told to you? Because they're not a written culture. They're an oral culture. So we want to look at simply the question as we dive into the New Testament and the person of Jesus as he's revealed there and reveals himself there. Is the New Testament even reliable at all? Like, how does it stack up with other books from antiquity? That anybody in a history class or in a university would accept as being, without question, credible, reliable, and authentic. How's the New Testament stack up against that? That's what we're going to start with. And then we're going to dive into the person of Jesus. And is he, as, again, C.S. Lewis once put it, is he Lord? These are 3 L's, right? Is he the Lord? Is he a liar? Or is he a lunatic? Because he's claiming to be God. And if he's claiming to be God, he either is God, which means he's Lord, or he thinks he's God, but he's not, which means he's nuts, he's a lunatic, or he knows he's not, but he's telling us he is, which means he is not a good man. He's wicked. He's not just a liar. He's a wicked liar. That's what we're going to dive into next week. Okay?